Okay, you guys, let's bring it on home before we start our sweet weekend and talk about the Love Island USA reunion. Now, I was so excited for this reunion. I really, oh, by the way, and if you're listening to this, thank you. But if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you as well. I want you to know I'm not able to be in the little hole that I work in because my dad's sleeping down there. So that's why I look like I'm in a bunker and potentially in a hostage situation. I assured you I'm okay. I also want to say these YouTube videos are wild. The coolest somebody I didn't even know you could tip people on your YouTube videos. And Matilda's mama or Wendy, Matilda's mama, if you're listening or watching this, my God, thank you. Are you kidding me? I do this. You don't have to do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was so nice. And I'm going to take my dad out to breakfast in the morning. So thank you. My goodness, that was so incredibly nice and thoughtful and awesome. So I just wanted to say that before I forgot about it. It's like midnight tonight. And I was just, Sandra, who I work with, texted me about this. And I was like, no way. So that was really nice. That was really, it made me feel great. Thank you. Okay. Now, enough of that sappy bullshit. So I was very excited about Love Island USA reunion because I really got swept away in the magic of Love Island, right? And I will say that it's been a couple weeks. It's been like 3 weeks since Love Island USA ended. And I got to talk with a lot of the cast members of Love Island USA. I was very fortunate. I was one of the outlets that continued to get interviews. And that means so much because we're like a medium-sized show, but it means so much to a medium-sized show to get those big interviews because we're not Nick Vialli. We're not the Heather McDonald's yet. We're not the BFFs pod or the chicks in the office or the toast. We're kind of our own little weird thing. And, I just, that means the world to me when I can get those opportunities because I genuinely love what I do. And it's one of those like by the time I hit 80 years old, I'm going to be the top baby. I'm going to be the top podcast out there. When I'm 80s, I'm going to be interviewing 20-year-olds that come off to Love Island. No, but I genuinely love this stuff. And I think that's what's so great about this season was that they managed to keep you hooked. They got you in, they kept you involved. And what I think is so good about Love Island USA and what I was trying to really talk to myself about these last couple of days after I saw the reunion was that why didn't I walk away? And I've watched the reunion twice now. Why didn't I walk away with the same feeling that I had, the same excitement that I had when I was watching the series? Because I will say, right out of the gate, the set was awesome. Ariana was awesome. Ariana was great. I will say this about Ariana. She showed no nerves. You could not, if she was nervous, you couldn't see it. If I was out there, you'd see me like flop sweating. I'd be like, "What's up, Kendall? What's going on?" No, man, she looked like a pro. Now, I do want to say, I've read some people critical about Ariana, and I think A, that's probably because she's a woman, and B, because that's what we do. We just criticize. But I will say on shows like this, and even with Andy on the reunions, remember, Andy's very involved, but he's not sitting there writing these questions with like everybody's doing research, everybody's throwing in. There's a producer on these shows. They're the ones that are in charge of these moments. Ariana has an earpiece in, like Andy has an earpiece in, and she's not the one going, okay, I want to take it over here and I want to write this question. And what if we did a segment like maybe in the future she'll be involved in all of those conversations? And maybe she was a little bit already, but not to the degree. Remember, this is a produced show. And for a first time out of the gate, I think she assured herself that she will be the host next season. She will be the reunion host next season. What excites me about Ariana is that I can't wait to see how she gets better. If this is where she starts, imagine how much better she's going to be. And she did damn good. Because we're so used to seeing Andy Cohen, but then we've seen some people do it on Netflix shows, and I very much disliked it. Very much disliked their performance. And Ariana, I did not dislike. And I know I already love Ariana, but no, I take hosting very seriously. And she did a really good job. But I will say the way it was laid out, which I do not think it was her fault at all, was very uneven. Within 20, like it was an hour and 21 minutes on Peacock without commercials. And I think it was minute 19 is when we immediately got into the Nicole and Kendall situation, which was very, very intense. And I almost wish there had been a therapist out there to help kind of mitigate and take us through a very difficult conversation, which we didn't really kind of make any headway on. And I almost thought maybe exacerbated the issue and made things so much worse for Kendall and in some ways Nicole, even though I just feel like she doesn't necessarily understand the situation she's in. And she's reacting in a certain way where we're now kind of coming down on her and she's in a tough spot. And I just feel like we shouldn't be coming down on anybody in this situation. But I do understand people's frustrations with Nicole's attitude and behavior in that scene. But I would ask you to put yourself in that same situation. And that's why I'm saying, like, reality television, like we've done the relationship part of all of this, right? We've been in fucked up relationships. But we haven't done fucked up relationships where millions of people are involved. We haven't done fucked up relationships in that way where then you have to talk in a big group of people where millions of people will be watching, dissecting, podcasting, Redditing, TikToking about everything that you say. I wouldn't be able to get up in the morning if that was that kind of responsibility. Think about it. I put my foot in my mouth so much on this show. Imagine what it would be like. I mean, I just don't think anybody in those scenarios in a high pressure situation with really hot camera lights on you is going to be able to speak clearly. You know, even Queen Leah was like kind of speaking all over the place at certain times, kind of like, and I will say that's one of the fascinating parts about this reunion and this season in general is that what makes it exciting is that these aren't industry professionals. This isn't Sheena season 11 of Vanderpump Rules, who's been doing this, has so much reality television under their belt. These are newbies. They're messy. They don't know what they're doing. This is the first reunion they've done. So you sense that messiness. And in a way, it was exciting, but I felt like if you could only harness that excitement a little bit more and direct it in a certain way, and I almost think that's a production issue more than anything else. But what I'm saying is that Nicole and Kendall scenario, which started at minute 19, should have been pushed back until like minute 40 or minute 50. And it should have built up to a crescendo. But when you had the most intense conversation. I mean, you also had Kayla and Aaron, right? But that was obviously later. But I think that the Kendall Nicole really, there's a gravity to the gravity to that conversation. We're having that at minute 20 and then not really kind of solving anything. I think it almost, I always use that phrase of like taking the, like kind of taking the air out of the bag, just that pressure, you want to keep all these balls in the air, especially with reality television, people on the edge of their seat. It kind of crushed that bag. Air went out of the bag. The dramatic tension started to be released, but then it was replaced with just this vibe of, ooh, I feel icky. I want to take a Silkwood shower. I don't feel good right now. It just felt kind of gross. And then that led me to my overall thought about the whole reunion is that these are babies. These are kids. I mean, truly, these are children. And it's not something that I had truly felt watching Love Island USA when they were in the villas, even though they were still children then. But for some reason, watching them talk about their reactions and talk about their behavior and talk about coming out of the villa, you realize that they're just children. They're just babies. It just felt like, oh, of course you're not going to be able to say the right thing. Of course, this is all way too much. And I think it took a little bit of that initial magic away from the show by doing this reunion. And at that point too, where I thought 3 weeks, there's going to be so much dramatic tension built in these 3 weeks from the end of the series to the finale, to the reunion, where I was like, this is going to be great. I mean, we're going to be able to see who's broken up, who's still together. But I think they kept doing podcasts. They kept, social media was like all over the place. So I think, you know what I'm saying? It didn't, some of the magic, I don't know. I felt like some of us have been invested every day since the finale, right? Every day. But then some of us, we've moved on to OC, we've moved on to other things, we've gone about our lives a little bit. And when you let more of that tension out, you kind of move on and then you're like kind of forced back into this. And there was something so beautifully corny about Love Island USA when they're in the villa. So beautifully corny, the concept, all of it. It's like, oh, it's a little cheesy. It's a little, but then you got wrapped up in the romance of it. And you're like, oh, this really could work. And then Casa Amor, where they like repairing who's cheating on who. Are they going to bring these girls? Are they going to bring the Casa girls back to the villa? All of these questions. And it's every day. So you don't have time to really think. You're like trapped in that villa. It's almost like the island on Lost. There's something so magical about that island on Lost that they were all trapped on. And then when they got out of that island, they just needed to, jack on that one scene of like, we need to go back. We need to go back to the island. That's where I felt like these kids, like once they got off the island, some of that initial magic just left because the magic was them being in this villa, locked away from their phones and all this. We can tell you, you and me talking right now, we know how beautiful life can be, but we also know how boring life can be. How the same bullshit, like being on our phones and Instagramming and tweeting and blah, 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 blah. They're just like us again. They're doing the same shit that we're doing. And I think sometimes that's way less exciting than knowing that they're squirreled away on some island and they only have each other and they're only supposed to focus on relationships and see if they can build a loving relationship. To me, that's exciting. But it's almost like revealing that Clark Kent is Superman. Once that's revealed, the secret identity, then it's like, oh, okay. And once they're off that island, okay. So there are little moments that I'm fascinated with, little moments that I am horrified by because they are so young. And I'm telling you, this much attention is never good. And then you throw that situation with Kendall and the revenge porn. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I truly got worried that he would hurt himself. I truly got worried he would hurt himself. And somebody wrote me the other day, well, like, I can't find the video. Good. I hope they scrub that fucking video off the internet. And I know a couple of other podcasts that have done interviews this week, one with Nicole, Kendall's now ex-girlfriend, went on and had this whole conversation about speculating about Kendall and his sexual preference. And this probably isn't the podcast for that conversation because there is a line where it's not my fucking business. And there is this thing where I even feel like a point where people will cross a line. You see on that reunion, the man is almost shaking. You got Nicole, her lips quivering. It's a very real moment. And then Kendall, they're like, no, man, just say it. He's like, oh, he's almost hyperventilating. Looks like he's about to have a panic attack. He's like, you could tell this man had to have the toughest conversations with his family, with his friends, and then trying to actually capitalize on this experience at the same time. Going, hey, I came here to be a star, and now I finally have attention, and now I have to deal with this, and everybody's questioning me, and I told this girl I loved her. I think I love her, and now I've got to like convince her I'm not a liar. The dude, there's only so much pressure people can take. And remember, our minds are a mess. So if you have one wrong thought at the one wrong moment, maybe you throw a little alcohol in there, things take a wrong turn, you see the wrong comment on Instagram or Reddit. It's just not, it's happened before. And that really worried me because it was so serious. And I know love is serious and all of this other stuff that these shows are about are serious, but this was different. This was a very real moment about somebody. And I heard clips from this podcast where it was like they were almost joking about it, like, well, I bet this is what I think he did. Well, he's obviously who knows. And I was like, dude, this is gross. This is gross. go tell this to your sewing circle or your little text thread, but don't put this out on a successful podcast where you're speculating about somebody's sexuality. This isn't your business. Now, if it was Kendall on this interview and it was an honest conversation with him about him, but it was with Nicole. Nicole should be talking about her experience. And I know it ties into her experience, but this one part of it where they're just, and it almost seems like just a form of making fun of him, a very serious moment. You guys might know what I'm talking about, might not know, but it grossed me out. Okay, also about this reunion, there was a rumor because Peacock had it as two parts, and then all of a sudden it was just one part. Now, I don't know if that was just a stupid mistake by the programmers. Never was a second part, but I will say there was a lot of stuff that we saw cameras filming of behind the scenes stuff of them outside of the villa. Even Nicole said when her and Kendall were having a private conversation, like at Universal Studios, when they all went, like when they came back from Fiji, they wanted to film that. And she said, no, this is a real personal moment, which good on you, Nicole, for demanding that they not film those real moments. But there's all of this footage that I'm like, where did that footage go? Were they planning on a second one and then thought, hey, maybe it's going too far? I mean, that will always be a mystery because I know there's a lot of stuff that they shot, like behind the scenes footage that we just didn't see. Now, I will say this one part, the hour and 20 minutes, was a little messy to the point where I didn't feel like I needed more because I almost felt like I didn't even know what necessarily the goal. Did we hit everything? Like I got even confused halfway through of like, well, what did actually happen this season? I was like, wait, what? And they had everybody out there. They had the Bombshells, the Casa girls, they had Hakeem, they had Connor. Connor barely spoke. I loved Connor. He barely spoke. Hakeem, I don't think spoke at all. I'm like, if you're not going to have them participate in, any kind of discussion or have a specific reason for them being out there, don't have them out there. I felt almost bad for Ariana at times having to like crane her neck to like the far right and the far left because that's how deep their roster was. And I just it just didn't feel that they were able to give all of those people moments enough to warrant them out there when we really care about, the people that that are stars now. And I don't mean that in a cruel way. I just felt like they weren't able to integrate that in a way that it made sense that they were out there. Is that fair? So we start off the thing with Ariana doing a thing in Times Square in a sexy dress, and once again, I just got to say, how cool is that for Ariana? And she earned it, and she did great. But like walking in Times Square, all sexy, like going like, I was like, wow, you really are doing the damn thing. Then they went to the red carpet for the Love Island USA reunion. The colors on the red carpet. It worked a little better on bit better on TV, but when we saw the pictures, I said this, I think, a couple of weeks ago when they had shot it. It made the girls especially look so washed out and eerie, especially Andrea. And I was like, man, the lighting on that red carpet just photographs so poorly. But then the set looked amazing. Also, I want to give a shout out once again to all their product placement, mainly Coffee Mate and Pizza Hut. Coffee Mate, there was like literally like a room of just bookshelves of Coffee Mate. And I was like, yeah, why put books in bookshelves? Why not store Coffee Mate there? Yeah, it needs to be refrigerated, but so what, right? I'm a huge fan of sugar-free French vanilla Coffee Mate because I'm a monster, but I love it, man. I could drink it straight. That's not true. I would never do that, but I'm just saying, I love a little sugar-free French vanilla Coffee Mate creamer, and they're not even a sponsor. I love it. Love it. I look forward to it every morning. When I run out of it and I haven't gotten more, I get sad. I get mad at myself. So I love that Coffee Mate was a sponsor, but there is something silly watching men have a conversation in a room of bookshelves of Coffee Mate. And then also in between certain scenes, they would eat Pizza Hut. And who has a logo of Pizza Hut on the inside of a pizza box? I've gotten Pizza Hut pizza before. I don't notice the Pizza Hut logo inside the box. So obviously a very crafty way to do your in-house marketing, really nice of having these guys like Rob's like, well, I guess I just need a slice of good old fashioned New York pizza that you can only get from Pizza Hut. So, for me, those are the moments that I kind of love because they're just cheesy as hell and reminds you that you are on television. So we start off, Ariana's asking some soft questions like, Kayla, how was it going? How was it going back to your hometown? Good to see your family. And at this point, she's still sitting next to Aaron. Now, Aaron, obviously the British dude, he won season one of The Traders UK, which, by the way, The Traders just announced the UK and the American UK version got picked up for the next two seasons as well. If you haven't, go and watch those UK and the Australian seasons on Peacock. Really good television. We see PPG, the girls there, but everyone seems kind of unsettled and nervous and excited. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, these people aren't used to doing, these aren't housewives. These aren't Vanderpumpers or Summer Housers or Southern Charmers. I don't even know if that's the correct way to what to call them, but they're not those people. They're not used to it. And I think that's what I wish we had even played up on more, just that nervous excitement. So Hannah, who was one of the first to get banished from the island, she says she got a lot of hate for her makeup. She had very extreme makeup. Hannah was on So Bad It's Good, and we actually did talk about her makeup at the time. She is so fun. She had a couple good lines throughout this reunion. And I will say also the sense on top of the uneasiness and the excitement was that you could tell these were really, they had formed real friendships. You could feel the closeness of the women and you could feel the closeness of the guys. And they end the reunion with Ariana saying, like, listen, there were real friendships formed. And that's such a great thing to bring, to have from reality television. So if we were look at the positives of Love Island, is that real friendships were made. Real friendships were made, and that's what they have to go off of. That and a bunch of Instagram followers. The final four couples are brought out. They're brought out after the initial introduction with all of the people, and then they bring out the final four couples. There's an extended hug sequence. Nicole and Kendall come out together. A lot of people didn't know if they would. They didn't know if they were still together or not at this point, right? And just so you know, Nicole and Kendall broke up after the reunion. They broke up this week, and then Nicole the next day was on the Nick Vialli podcast, Nick Viall's podcast. I just say Vialli because I'm a monster. So they broke up. They both posted Instagram messages. Kendall broke up with Nicole. I'll read you those text messages in a second, but a lot of people going into this, including myself, were wondering what happened with this relationship. So they came out together, and I was like, oh, interesting. But you felt intensity immediately between them. Ariana says something about Kendall popping bottles at the club because he did a couple of club appearances. Leah says she wants to ride horses with Ariana because, remember, Ariana's a horse girl and Leah owns horses. Cordell, we find out, got his Cheez-Its deal, and he has a deal with Warby Parker, the frame company. So he's like seeing better, he's eating better, and I'm very happy for Cordell. Cordell and Serena still together. They were very cute the entire reunion. Cordell and Serena, I got to talk to them on the show as well, and they were great, man. They were hanging all over each other, and it gives you different perspective when you were able to talk to somebody. You get a whole different vibe from them, especially Miguel. Miguel, I actually had a whole new appreciation for after I spoke to him, because I was like, this dude's just a player when I watched the show. But then as the show went on, and then after I talked to him, I had a whole different take on Miguel. Then I will say there's shots of Rob throughout the entire reunion where he looks just casually disinterested. And that's Rob, man. Rob was like that the entire series. And I think that's why the kid's a star. I mean, he's also extremely good looking, but they'll like do a shot of him and he just looks like he's just totally disassociating. He's just like somewhere. He's like catching snakes in his head somewhere. And then we get to Cordell and Serena, and they ask Cordell how the relationship's going. And Cordell says, yeah, well, I finally asked Serena to be my girlfriend. And I was like, well, cool. And then B, wait, I thought you already fucking were boyfriend and girlfriend. I got so confused throughout this reunion. And this also happened with Janae and Kenny, where they said like they're officially like boyfriend and girlfriend now. I'm like, you weren't fucking boyfriend and girlfriend already? Even when I talked to him, I was like, I assumed they were all boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, wait, what? You were just casually dating? No, you're boyfriend and girlfriend. So I was like shocked when he's like, yeah, planned this thing at a restaurant and I officially asked her and I was so confused. Like, did you guys feel that at all? Where I was like, yeah, duh. No fucking shit. No, yeah, I know. I know your boyfriend, girlfriend. I also wanted to know what restaurant Cordell popped the girlfriend question at. I was like, oh my God, please say it was Dorit's room at Buca de Beppo. Wouldn't that be magical? I want to get married there someday, which I think it's actually closing down. So I just kept writing throughout my note-taking process. They're just babies. They're just babies. These are just kids. Janae and Kenny. Janae went to Dallas, where Kenny's from, met Kenny's mom. And she makes a joke that there is some news to report that she's pregnant. And Kenny was like, what? What are you talking? Everybody had a good laugh, but they're dating too. And like I said, I just assumed you guys are all boyfriend and girlfriends at this point. They said, Leah and Miguel, how are you doing? And Miguel's like, well, I tried to organize a surprise birthday party for her. And Leah's like, I don't even like surprises. Leah has this very interesting, it's not a Luann husky voice, but she goes very low. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Liv, are you kidding me? Rob, there's like a lowness. There's like, her voice, like, are you fucking kidding me? How we got 3 out? Like, there's a lowness to her voice. It's like a Kathleen Turner huskiness. I don't know. And by the way, Leah also has one of the most expressive faces. Her eyes are so expressive, and I think that's what makes her so unique. Very attractive as well. But I think, I was noticing Leah's Instagram before she went in the villa, and I think Leah is so beautiful. I think a lot of people obviously find her so beautiful, but she did that thing that a lot of girls and guys do where it was like heavily face tuned, not heavily, but like light face tuning around the eyes and the nose. And it is so interesting because I was like, oh, I didn't know her Instagram before I knew her. Like, I knew her first, and then I saw her Instagram and I was like, oh, weird. She always like messed with her photos and her face. And I thought, oh, that must be so cool for her to realize everybody thinks she's so beautiful without any of that shit. Does that make sense? I hope that's not being an asshole to say that, but I thought in a way it was like this extreme positive because I was like, oh my God, she's such a unique beauty that you don't need to do that kind of shit. But everybody, I think, in this society, we feel like we need to, I mean, I was at Jeff Lewis a couple weeks ago, and Naya, who does the photos for the show, we're going to take photos, and she really fucking face tuned the shit out of me and Justin. And I was like, what did you do? I was like, nobody would even fucking know. I was like, what? We all, what did you do? Oh my God. So anyways, Ariana asks if anybody is saying that they love each other yet. Have you dropped the love word? And then Miguel's like, we don't have to rush into everything. Come on. We don't have to rush into everything. But I will say, we do know that, remember, Kendall told Nicole that he loved her in the villa, which we were all like, dude, that is really extreme. And I will say moments like that have then made people speculate about his character and about himself and him trying to prove certain things. And I hate that then everything, because of this fucking revenge porn, has then made everybody question everything and like dig into every moment, when sometimes the guy's just an over expressive, positive dude. No matter if you thought the dude was corny, whatever, he was like he seemed like a guy that was just trying to get everybody happy and everybody on the same page. And I don't know, there was a level of positivity with Kendall that I think a lot of people get annoyed by at times, which I think is so weird, because it's like, dude, the guy's just trying to have everybody be in a good mood. Anyway, so that love you question happens. Cordell, Leah says, Ariana says, Leah, fans fell in love with you. And then Ariana asks, how many followers do you have on Instagram now? And Leah's like, almost 3 million. Ariana, by the way, I think that's like 2.5. And Leah has 3 million. She started off, like, before Love Island, 12,000 followers. Imagine going from 12,000 followers, disappearing off the face of the earth for 2 months, coming back, and now you have 3 million followers. That's insane. That's a lot to comprehend. Just a lot. And she was like, yeah, that's a big thing. That's a big number. That's very big. I agree. I also think it's funny, like Ariana, man, her social media has grown a lot in this last couple of years, obviously. And 2.5, that's an insane number as well. But Ariana's been now in the game for a decade plus. And I did wonder, I hope to interview Ariana again one day because I would just love to ask her, like, what are you thinking in those moments? Because I know she genuinely likes everybody, but what are you thinking in those moments when you see how quickly it happens? How quickly, like, people will take pop culture figures on a hit show and it explodes all of a sudden. And then, I wonder where these people are a year from now, 2 years from now, in terms of like followers and things of that nature, where Ariana has been this slow build up until 2 years ago. And then it kind of really picked up steam, post Scandal. And then what she did with it just made it keep building, keep building, keep building. Okay, so now we get to Nicole and Kendall 19 minutes in. Kendall says, well, it's been a bit tough coming on the outside trying to communicate. And Nicole immediately jumps in and is like, you have not been communicating and you never have been. And Kendall was like, I was just trying to give you your space. And Nicole's like, you lied to my face. And she has tears. Her lips are quivering. And we go to our first commercial break. And then we come back and Ariana is like, well, what was the lie? And Kendall, this is the moment where he seems like he's bracing for impact. And he's like having a panic attack. And people are like, it's okay, Kendall. Just say it, man. Just say it. Just say it. And Nicole says, if you love somebody, you should be honest. And it turns out Nicole found out from Janae the severity of the video when Kendall had lied to her and said, oh, it was an ex from the past. Like there was a couple untruths spoken about, said it was to a girl on Raya. And then she found out it was in the hotel room allegedly before he went in the villa, but it was in Fiji. And there's a lot of mystery here, but she doesn't. The thing with Nicole is that it's like two separate conversations taking place. And unfortunately, the conversation that she's having is taking and has to take a backseat to the conversation that Kendall in his head is having and what he's going through, just because it's so much more severe. And I don't mean to sound heartless because I know feeling love for somebody is a big thing, right? But there is more at stake for Kendall. And she just keeps saying, well, when you love somebody, you're not supposed to lie, And I think that's when I was like oh man, they're just kids, they're just kids. There's so many reasons, unfortunately, why we lie and why we tell people things that they want to hear or to not upset somebody to a degree. And especially when you get thrown something in your face that you do not expect and you are trying to keep this person here that you have genuine feelings for, and you don't know how to explain your behavior because this was not, in some ways your run of the mill revenge porn. I hope they prosecute whoever. They've got to know who this is. They've got to know. It's got to be a very specific person. And I hope that person is brought to some form of justice. And I hate to say it for that person, but I hope they use that person as an example. So this kind of stuff does not happen again because it got leaked at a very specific time, the day he gets out of the villa. Or like the day he's like the last day, And I will say, when I had Kendall and Nicole on right after they got out of the villa, I had all of them. I had like 4 couples in one day. And they called me right before I was to do the interview to say, hey, Kendall just put a statement out on Instagram about this, but don't ask anything. And I was like, don't worry. I was already not going to ask him about this because I even knew this isn't a conversation you're going to have with somebody that you've never met. You don't know me. I'm not going to be like, hey, so what's the deal with that thing with the video of the what? No, I'm respectful to a degree. You can do that once you have a relationship with somebody. You built trust with a guest, but other than that, I already knew that, but they were so nice about it. Just like, oh yeah, I wasn't going to do that anyways. But what I will say is you sensed at that time, and at that time, according to Nicole, all she knew was that somebody had leaked a revenge porn. And she's like, oh my God, that's so shitty. We've all been in that situation where we've sent like sexy videos or something. She didn't know any more specific. She thought it was years ago, blah, blah, blah. And only days later, and not because of Kindle, did she find out what the video actually was. was able to see it. And that's when I think a lot of the questions and the anger came up because Kendall had not told her the truth about those situations. But I will say, and I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but he was probably just trying to survive at that point. He was probably in fight or flight. I mean, there is nothing your nervous system can prepare you for in terms of dealing with something like that. I mean, it's very different on top of the situation he had just put himself through with being in this villa. And I just thought, man, you're coming out, you think the world is your oyster all of a sudden, and then this happens and your whole floor drops out. It's got to be he's got to still feel very insane because he's trying to still put up this public persona and smiling and being nasty and, being fun Kendall. And he's probably just torn up inside completely. So I sensed in that day when I interviewed him, you could just tell that she was very empathetic to him. And you could tell he was nervous and trying to keep on a brave face and almost like, is this guy going to say anything weird? And then, I think I, try to get him to have fun and be like, oh, and I think, they both got into it, but you could tell they were a couple that was like dealing with some shit or trying to figure out, like, there was a nervousness about them that it was easy to pick up on, especially from Kendall. And I completely understand why. But Nicole just, and Nicole, by the way, to give a little background on her, she spoke about this, but she was in a really bad previous relationship that I think was potentially abusive. And, there was lies involved. So, that really throws a lot of gas on any kind of fire then when it comes to relationships, because she's been burned. She is not trusting. And when these things happen and when lies happen, it really just, if a wound is scabbed over, it just rips that wound completely open again. So in her head, she's thinking, me protecting my heart. And then everybody else is like, no, I totally get that. But this dude is potentially falling apart. We gotta pay attention to this. And it just didn't seem like she is at a point yet where she is able to understand that. And I think that is the scary part, is that Nicole just didn't know how to make it not about her. But a lot of people are just really coming at her about this still. And I just would ask people to put yourselves in her position. Is like, I will say the Nick Viall interview, don't know if that was necessary. And especially because at that point he had asked her not to speak about it on a podcast, and she did. But at the same time, also in her defense, he's been going on everything and talking and all this stuff. And maybe not about this moment, but out there popping the bottles and looking like he is living the life. And we know that's not true. That's just the image he wants to present. But Nicole's like, oh, sorry guys, I haven't been going through something. So she's all, oh, I can't have feelings. And it's just the wrong conversation at the wrong time. But I understand where it comes from. She was in an abusive relationship. So it was also interesting to talk about, like, she's like, you didn't check on me. He's like, well, I was giving you space. I waited a couple days. And once you posted on Instagram, I messaged you. It is interesting because it seems like for somebody that like we're still together, they were communicating in very weird ways. And I was like, how could you even say you were still together if you guys weren't even in direct communication, and you were just like messaging each other on Instagram? And then he said he offered to fly her to Dallas. And she said, yeah, but that was only so you could probably bring it up right now. And everybody was like, come on, Nicole, come on. That's not true. And she kept saying things like, when you love someone, you're in a hard position all the time. And he was like, dude, I had to deal with my family. Like, you got to understand, like, I've had to deal with, I had to deal with my family before you. But she kept saying, when you're in love, you have to deal with this and this and this. And it seemed like a very movie way of looking at love. And I think Nicole will feel differently about this in 6 months. And, but I will say people, unfortunately, aren't wondering about Nicole. They're wondering about Kendall and how he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're worried about him. And that's not to say we don't have compassion for her, but it's a different situation. It's just, it's a really tough situation. And that's why I'm saying sometimes with these reality shows, can they withstand such an insane, intense discussion And that's why this discussion was kind of lacking because it didn't really get anywhere. And it was the most intense discussion of the hour and 20 minutes. And we had it like by minute 25, it was over. And it was so real. That could have been an hour right there, but you almost wish there was like medical professional, like mental health professionals on set to actually try to like facilitate an actual conversation because Andy Cohen wouldn't have been able to one to do that conversation. Ariana wouldn't be able to do that conversation. They might have great moments within that conversation, but I think this is such a real situation that, it's a real delicate thing to all of a sudden put out on reality television reunion show. So that all happens. Then other people start throwing in their comments. And Rob is like, Nicole, you have every right to be upset, but this isn't about you. Everyone that knows Kendall knows he loves you. And that's another moment where I was like, man, these kids are so young because it's like they keep throwing around like, oh, he loves you and da da da. And it's like, he likes you a lot. I think the older I get, the more I discovered that love is built over time. You can be in love with somebody, but then love deepens over time. And so when people just throw these things out, it's like, yeah, man, you guys have known each other for like 2.5 months now, like, yeah, like you want to love somebody, you feel like you could love somebody, but is this love? And Nicole kept going, I know he loves me. I love him. I don't doubt his feelings for me. And that's when I wrote like, hey, has Connor talked at all at this point? Miguel says, even now, it's probably hard for Kendall to be even honest about this. Because Miguel was like, dude, like you got to understand, like honesty, of course, is an easy thing to say. But like even now, he's probably not able to be fully honest with you or even with himself. And that's why this is such a big conversation. Anyways, Daniela, who was a Casa girl, says it seems like Kendall has been living his best life on Instagram and Nicole has been radio silent. And Nicole was kind of spinning this as like, yeah, I was protecting him by not talking to anybody and I was taking tons of hate and he's out there doing club appearances. And it's just different strokes, but obviously they were in no sort of communication. So it just, nobody's a winner here. Cordell said, though, even at those club appearances, he was acting like he was still with you. He wasn't out there hooking up and all of that stuff. Ariana says, hey, it's okay to not be together or to be together. You don't need to stay together, but it's okay if you like Ariana's. And then she goes, Serena, why are you laughing? Because Serena was laughing. And Serena was like, I too don't like to be lied to. And I would come out and I would say, I'm done with you. But I do think that Kendall does love Nicole and vice versa. And they need to work it out without outside opinions and without the internet. And I thought, man, this Serena says so many amazing things, but that's right. Is that, yeah, you need to work it out without a reunion show, without going on podcasts, without the opinions of the internet. And it's done. Like they're already, they broke up a couple days later. And who knows? The same thing I thought with Aaron and Kaylor is that they broke up, but like in 6 months, I could see they're such goofs that they might get back together at some point as well. You never know. Anyways, Serena also says, well, listen, I do believe in second chances, obviously. And that was a joke at Cordell. But I want to point out, it's like weird that it's weird that even we're involved. It's weird that I'm doing this podcast right now. It's weird that, Nicole or Kendall could turn this on and hear us debating their relationship. Think about that as a concept. Anyways, they go to another break. Kenny tells Kendall like, hey man, you couldn't have done any better in that segment. No, you couldn't have done that any better, Rob in this next segment, they're talking about him and Andrea and his behavior in the villa and says, listen, I'm a dumbass. I got really emotional. I will say it's very cool in Peacock. They allow the curse words to like flow. They don't beep them out. And there is something very powerful about hearing these kids say fuck. I'll just say it. It's like when you think you look cool smoking a cigarette, you're like, damn, I know cigarette smoking's bad for you, but God, do I look cool doing it. Rob says he has regrets for pain he caused or saying things that he didn't mean. And he says, but everything unfolded the way it was probably supposed to, and good relationships came out of terrible things, which I thought was a good way to put it. And Rob and Andrea, this is the first time that they've seen each other. And now remember, Andrea was banished from the villa in a very intense fireside vote where Rob lost his mind, threatened to leave, but immediately didn't. Aaron was crying because Rob was about to leave. It was the most dramatic moment, I think, of the entire series. And Andrea, who I had on the show, I mean, you could tell that she was into him. She was you could tell she was like, oh, we might get together after the show. I thought they were going to put her in the Casa Amor and be one of those people that pops up to kind of be with Rob again. And that all didn't happen. I was completely wrong about that. Leah listening to Andrea speak is funny to watch because like I said, her eyes are so expressive. So she'd be like, you could tell when she was like, bullshit. Leah jumps in when Andrea is talking and is like, you said on After Sun, I act out of emotions. And that's actually what you do. And then Janae, she literally pulls out printed receipts. She is a housewife in training. She has the receipts and she's like, page 4, let's start. I've got the receipts right here. On After Sun, you called Leah a two-face, and Leah has only bit her tongue around so many times. She is not two-faced. So that's where you see the strong bond between the PPG girls, is they are so strongly bonded, where Janae was jumping in for Leah against Andrea. And I did have this because those girls were kind of branded mean girls at the reunion a little bit. I don't agree with that necessarily. What I do agree with, if you didn't know anything about Love Island USA, like my dad was watching it, he thought they were bullies. The people that did watch the show realized the actuality of that situation, the friendships that were at play, that they're actually sticking up for their girl. But if you didn't watch the series, it would come off almost like bullying and a little bit like Mean Girls. I will say that if you didn't have context. Anyways, Janae and Leah start going in on Andrea. Janae makes points. Leah does act out of emotion, though. I will say that. And you saw it on the show. I mean, we celebrated her for it. But Janae actually will make points. She has the receipts. She makes points. Now, Liv hops in as well in regards to Andrea. But all of this is just petty squabbles. And like I said, it didn't make for the most fascinating reunion, especially after the Kindle segment. So it was just like, well, this is just petty squabbles. It's not okay. The magic of watching Love Island is the small moments during the show. But when you start talking about these small moments on a reunion, it doesn't necessarily hold a lot of water. It's very different when you have a Housewives reunion. It's very segmented. It never goes on long enough, but you're having very specific conversations between 2 or 3 housewives. And this is between 2 characters, 3 characters, but you have 30 people on the stage. So there was a lot of moments like that where I was like, I don't know if I necessarily care anymore about these smaller moments. But Andrea talks about coming out, and it was hard to deal and cope. And, she really did like Rob. And I think she was going live on Instagram and TikTok a lot because I think it was comforting to have all of these people be interested, and some people egging her on and some people saying she was crazy. All of the stuff that we potentially when we're younger, go through in our heads when we like somebody, but this is just to a very strong degree. Let's see here. We go into the next segment and we talk to the Casa girls, and Kenny had brought Catherine back in. Cassie had been with Rob and they're still friends. Daya says the social media is way too much. You have to realize, she tells the other people on the stage, how much co-signing other people's behaviors to your followers, because they'll it really is bad, because then they'll go and drag other people, get in DMs. It's, it's online bullying in a lot of ways. And, a lot of these people are waking up to, man, they're probably waking up to hundreds of hate messages because somebody's agreeing, one of the cast members, Leah's agreeing with something or liking a comment. And that just really extends the hate cycle. And Serena says, listen, I don't co-sign any of that stuff. And Dayo's like, no, Serena, you've been amazing. And Ariana at this point says, I want to address the social media of it all. And she says, I've been through it. I've gotten it plenty. Sometimes people can see you as a character on a show, and forget you're a real person with a real life and real friends and family. And it's really important to be kind to our islanders, as she looks directly in the shotgun and the barrel of the camera and says that. And I think that's a really important moment for Ariana. And I hope next year they give her more moments like that where she's able to share her experience, because a lot of us came over to this iteration of Love Island because of Ariana. And I think she has such a unique perspective after these last couple of years and the scandal, where she can speak to these people on a very different level. And so I really like this moment, and I want more of those moments from Ariana next year. And Leah says, listen, I don't want anyone to say anything negative on my behalf. I don't hate anyone, even Rob. Please spare the man, which was very funny. And then they went to break and they put up a cyberbullying hotline, which is 988. So if any of you guys cyberbully me, I'm going to call 988 on you. But honestly, that was a good thing. And that service is there if you want to talk to somebody. Let's see. Now we get into the Kaylor and Aaron stuff, and this almost was like a sketch where you're like, "Hey, Kaylor and Aaron, how has life been?" And Aaron's like, "Not very good. It's not been very good. I gotta be honest, Ariana, it's not very good." And then he literally goes and he goes, "Listen, I lied to Kaylor straight up. I put my hands down Danielle's pants. Snogging, loads of romantic connections." Like literally comes out of the gates and says he put his hands down Danielle's pants in Casa. And Kaylor's like, "Fuck, Aaron, fuck. Why did you tell me this yesterday in the hotel room?" She literally flips out and she's like, "Don't look at Ariana. Take accountability." Ariana's like, "Why am I in this?" Like, because he was like looking at Ariana for help. He's like, "Don't look at Ariana, Aaron. Take accountability and be a fucking man. Why didn't you say this one fucking time? We were just together in New York for the last 3 days. Quit fucking lying. You robbed me of my summer. Quit love bombing me. I came in a confident girl and you changed me. You wore me down. You wore me down. I don't want anything to do with you, Aaron. Don't speak to me ever again." And Serena's like, "Queen girl, pussy boss." It literally says queen girl, pussy boss. And everybody kind of claps at this moment. And then she asks to switch seats with Liv so she doesn't have to sit next to Aaron. But it just went off. But I do wonder, like, Aaron, once again, us men are so stupid. And like, Aaron was like, "I didn't have the balls. I didn't have the balls to tell you. And I wanted to tell you. And then we were in New York and you were so happy to see me. I couldn't do it." I was like, I couldn't believe that he kept revealing things that he did. Like, we saw some of the behavior in Casa that we knew, and then we saw some of it on the home movie night where she got to see some of his behavior. But I didn't know he like put his hands down her pants. I didn't know it was like that, which then led me to think about that Demois blind a couple weeks ago, where she said she had it on good authority that 2 cast members of Love Island USA hooked up in the villa and continually hooked up in the villa throughout the season that weren't paired up as a couple. They would hide off to a secret bathroom and hook up there. And I thought, oh, that's a weird rumor. I don't think that's true. But Demois like doubled and tripled down on it, right? And then Leah was like, "Oh, that's cap. That's bullshit." And Demois said on her podcast, like, "Oh, it's very interesting that Leah commented on that," which almost led me to believe that Leah is one of the people that was hooking up with somebody. So my guess would be Leah and Rob. But who knows? Who knows? We'll probably never know. But my thought when I read that Demois thing was that I was like, there's no way they're off there hooking up in some secret bathroom with all those cameras and production. You wouldn't be able to do it. But then after that pants thing, I was like, wait, I didn't see the pants. Like, how much shit are they being able to pull without us knowing? Or is production making decisions to not show these things? Because I didn't realize it went that far. Like, you tell me they left out a scene where Aaron's hands were down Danielle's pants? So anyways, Kaylor is done with Aaron for good. He's like, "I didn't have the balls." And Liv's like, "You didn't have the balls for 2 months. When are your balls going to drop?" Daniela apologizes to Kaylor, and Kaylor's like, "It's not your fault, girl." Rob says, "Listen, I tell Aaron every single time to be accountable. He's not perfect, but he's not a horrible person." And Ariana's like, "Well, yeah, Kaylor and Aaron, you guys were posting on Instagram together thick as thieves." And Kaylor says, "When we were in LA at first, we were all good. Then I went home. I watched Casa Amor in episode 6, where I kissed Hakeem in a challenge and Aaron lost his shit." which is so funny because there's always a double standard on women, right? Like she's not allowed to like kiss somebody, but he can put his hands down anybody's pants. At this moment, I was like, get these girls a job at Sir. Somebody in my Facebook group said this the other day, and I was like, that's so true. Put Kaylor and Liv and Leah, make them work at Sir. They are ready to go. This is like Stassi, Katie, Dodie all over again, right? Aaron says, well, my granddad passed away the morning of the BFF podcast, and you still shat all over me, Kayla. And so he's saying his grandpa died and she was still like, he was really hurting and she was going in on him and it felt like she wasn't supporting him, which by the way, at the end of the day, we all know podcasts are the problem. Podcasts are the deep problem. Anyways, they're done for good, or at least done for now, right? Liv and Leah, they kind of apologize to each other in terms of, Liv apologized to Leah in terms of that fireside conversation and saying that Leah wanted to get Andrea out so she could be with Rob. So Liv apologizes to Leah, and then Kaylor apologizes to Leah for not having her back more, not giving her the benefit of the doubt. Janae has her notes out at this point again, her receipts, and says that Aaron needs to apologize to the girls for calling them idiots. And Leah lashes out and goes, yeah, Aaron, are you a gossiper? Or are you a bitch? Are you a bitch? I will say, any day you film this reunion, you would have gotten a different reunion. That's how live wire this gang is. You would have gotten a different reunion if you shot it on Thursday or if you shot it on Friday. It would have been a totally different reunion. I truly believe that. Then they do another commercial where they got to get some more Pizza Hut. I will say they also do a segment, which I talked about the other day, where they showed an unedited 10-minute clip of that fireside decision to send Andrea home. And my big thing from that was that the magic of editing and music and, it's such an art form that it makes it so much more exciting. So when you're seeing the unedited clip, it's just this, it takes more of the magic away. And you do sense that Leah maybe chose to keep Nicole or fought to keep Nicole, but that was also meaning Andrea would leave. And that's a way to get Andrea to leave by supporting Nicole. So there's still a little bit of mystery there. Like, is Leah being fully truthful in terms of who she wanted to leave? But at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. And I felt that 10-minute segment, it was for us deep geeks, but I don't think it was there for a casual viewer. Does that make sense? It just kind of slowed everything down, like really slowed things down. We end with some viewer questions about Rob. Are you going to ever retire the overalls? And he's like, they're functional and comfortable. We spent a minute on Rob's overalls. We didn't need to do that. Ariana asked how tired are they of the avocado toast in the mornings, which is a question I always asked all the time. Come on. They asked if all the bromances have survived. And this is where Connor actually got to speak and says, yeah, Rob and Cordell, we tried to find snakes. We did karaoke at Barney's Beanery. And I was like, oh my God, please tell me you didn't run into Sandoval. What up, dude? New kids on the block. Welcome to reality TV, brothers. Now let's have a karaoke off, dude. And this is where Ariana said, so many amazing friendships with the guys and the Casa girls. None of this would have happened if it weren't for the show. They asked Janae, what's the lesson you learned? And she says, it's important to always be it's always important to be a girl's girl, stand on business, and always take risks. And then Ariana's like, Kendall, can we hear it for the last time? And he's like, what? Oh, okay. He's like, we're getting nasty. Which I was like, maybe we don't end on Kendall saying anything about getting nasty, especially with what he just went through. But I understand the heart was in the right place. And then Ariana says, Love Island Games will be having a season 2 in 2025. Which, by the way, Leah already has turned down Love Island Games, but a lot of the other people on stage seem excited. So I'm curious who they will pick to be on Love Island Games. And that's all from different casts. So who knows? Maybe our friend Bergie will be there. Anyways, you guys, this was a very long summation of something that you potentially already saw. So hopefully you got something from it. But if not, sorry. And come back tomorrow. Or come back on Saturday. We're going to do a Real Housewives of Orange County full recap of the new episode, which I really dug. Love you guys. Have a great Friday. Bye.